there is dispute about if this was actually the right decision for France, given the overall political constellation that, of course, President Macron was aware of. Even if they are not about to realize their program in total, there is a lot that they can block, for instance, in the European level. I think there's a real risk that financial markets will react. The idea that the children will have a better future than their parents, that's for many people not a given anymore.
The French elections could have a huge impact on the economy there, with totally different visions for the future of the country. And President Macron is facing the biggest threat to his power to date. To break this down for us is Eileen Keller of the German-French Institute, or DFI. Thank you very much for joining us, Eileen. How significant are these elections, in your opinion?
They're a very crucial moment for France. I mean, it's been a development for years now that we have seen the far right rising, but it's really the first time that it's not clear if the moderate parties will have a majority or if it's the far right winning the election. It's really a possibility.
Okay, so before we dig into the different policies behind this, first of all, how is the French economy doing at this moment in time?
Well, if we look at the development for the last years, it's a rather positive dynamic, I would say. President Macron has done a lot for the economy, for stimulating growth. He lowered taxes for businesses. He simplified regulations on the labor market. I mean, last year, France was growing a bit less than 1%. That's not really much. But if you compare it to Germany, the German economy that was contracting at the same time, this is still at least something. We see a positive dynamic on the labor market with unemployment rates going down. France has been, for the 5th year in a row, #1 destination in Europe for foreign direct investment. So this is all pretty positive, I'd say. On the downside, to have the picture complete, it's true that France has a high level of state debt, around 110% of GDP. So this is something that reduces room for maneuver for any French government. We have seen 2 rating downgrades by the big rating agencies in less than a year. And so the French government was cutting expenses this year, and it was also the perspective for the rest of the mandate of President Macron to cut on budget in order to reduce the debt level and to respect the European criteria for state deficit.
Okay, but if the French economy is doing all right compared to other European nations, especially Germany, as you mentioned, why is Macron under such significant pressure at the moment?
Well, he is unpopular with a part of the French population. He's been in power for 7 years now, and this is a dynamic that we have seen with all French presidents in the past, that as a matter of principle, the longer they are in power, the less the support is. And this has also to do, I think, with the French electoral systems, which is majoritarian, meaning that you need that you have an election where you have, in the end, 2 candidates, and you have to choose between 2. So it might mean that you cannot vote for your own candidate, but you have to vote for the person that is, to say it simply, the lesser evil in your views. And this is something that more and poor people are not willing to accept as a principle in elections, being unable at a certain moment in the second round of elections of not choosing their favorite candidate, but voting for someone else whom they are not supporting entirely, but which is the better choice, given the limited choice that is still there.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about Macron. Let's go through the main contenders one by one. So first, with the poll leaders' national rally, what would a win for them mean for businesses and the economy?
Well, overall, the party is against free trade, is for protectionism, favoring French production over foreign competitors. I mean, you can find some business-friendly regulations in their program also, such as freeing, exempting young entrepreneurs from taxes, or young people under 30 who work but won't pay for taxes on their income. But the big question is how this will be funded, and this is not clear. So what we can expect is that the markets will react to the far right being elected. We will see an increase in spreads on the French debt, which will make the situation for the government even more complicated. And it's totally unclear how a program that is very intense in terms of spending, focusing very much on increasing purchasing power of large parts of the population, which is a big topic or the most important topic for an important part of the French electorate, how this economic program can be realized given the overall economic situation, given the situation of French state debt levels.
Okay, so you mentioned there the increase in spread if the right-wing party wins. So essentially, that borrowing is going to become more expensive if they get into power. With the left-wing bloc, the New Popular Front, is that going to be radically different if they succeed?
Actually not. When you look at their program, there are many points in common with the far right when it comes to protectionism, when it comes to economic patriotism, when it comes to an anti-trade policy. They are also in favor of increasing purchasing power, so potentially the cost for state budgets of an economic program from the far left, which is united with the moderate left, would be even more costly. One element that is different is that the far left, or the left governance, is much more in favor of increasing taxes for the rich. So there is at least one credible source of income, potential income, that could be fund part of the expensive, but still what they propose in terms of increasing, for instance, the minimum salary to 1,600 euros net, it's totally unclear how this program could be funded.
Okay, so just to sum that up, how realistic do you think that the plans are for the French economy at the moment? Because just to kind of work through what you've been touching on at the moment, one business leader is quoted by the Economist newspaper as saying that both agendas are dangerous for the economy. Is it really that serious?
I think there's a real risk that financial markets will react. Obviously, both on the left and the right, they are aware of the risk that they could see happening on the markets. So they will try to send signals in order not to put oil in the fire, to put it that way. But it's not clear that it works. It's for sure an election winning for the president would be the best outcome for the economy as a whole. Each other scenario has, for the least, a risk in terms of predictability, potential political instability. President Macron has done a lot for the image France as brought as an economic place where you produce, where you invest. So this is something that for sure will shift. So investors that are realizing only now that something is about to change in France, dynamic that on the ground was going on for years. So this can have a tremendous impact also in terms of overreaction to what is realizing suddenly that something is about to change in France, which might provoke a herd-like behavior from part of investors, for instance. So the risk for the economy,
investors might like Macron, but clearly, if he has left so much political room for the far right to come in and the left to come in, then in a sense, he's let France down politically, which could then put them into this economic situation. So is this in essence a failure of Macron?
Well, his decision to dissolve parliament at this point of time, it's very much criticized, including also from pro-business cycles, because in his view, it was a necessity given the poor outcome the presidential camp had during the European elections that took place beginning of June. But in strict political terms, it was not a necessity. So obviously, we see this blaming of President Macron going on from the side of business, including some of his closest political allies that have criticized pretty openly that they were not supporting the decision that the president has taken in terms of dissolving the parliament now. So yes, certainly there is dispute about if this was actually the right decision for France, given the overall political constellation that, of course, President Macron was aware of.
Okay, so some people who might speak out in favour of these parties could say that French voters shouldn't be worried because historically these kinds of electoral policy proposals are more aspirational than they are guarantees. Of course, they're going to list the top things that they would like to get done, but actually through negotiation and discussion and through the political process, they'll end up being watered down anyway. What's your perspective on that?
Well, the truth is we do not know. I mean, we have seen political parties from the far right on the rise in Europe, also in other countries, and some of them, if you have, for instance, a look at Italy, they have a pretty business-friendly overall cause, trying not to provoke much of a disarray. That's an option, but you have to keep in mind France is not Italy. It's one of the biggest countries in the Union, and even if they are not about to realize their program in total, there is a law that they can block, for instance, in the European level. So, I mean, even if they're not in the position to realize the overall program, they can nevertheless do a lot of harm in terms of blocking, in terms of hindering, and part of the program of the measures that they program, they are not in line with either European law or national French law. So there's an open question of if judges have intervened, if they would respect. So there is a lot of insecurity going on, no matter if they really realize what they propose or not.
Okay, let's talk about the most important trade relationship within the EU between France and Germany. How would this relationship potentially change depending on the outcome of the election?
Well, I mean, we have the common market in Europe, and the European economies are highly independent. When you look at trade relations, France is number 2 worldwide for German exports, and which is important for German growth perspective. So any development that harms France negatively in economic terms has a negative impact also on the German economy. So that's the direct impact in terms of trade relations, if you want. But obviously, there's another element when it comes to financial markets, political instability that puts a potentially negative light on the European Union as a whole when it comes to investment. So this is this more general layer that is also in the picture when we talk about the economic impact of what is going on in France at the moment.
Okay, just to wrap up here, what does France need? What is the medicine that the French economy needs to take right now, regardless of the party political platform?
I mean, that's a really difficult question, and I think there is no simple answer to it. I mean, these are trends that are not specific to France in a way. We see them particularly clearly now in France, but it may be that Germany will be in a similar situation maybe in 10 years from now. That's not totally clear if France is just ahead of developments that we will see elsewhere. I think the root causes are deep. It has much to do with societal developments, with the past and the post-war growth period coming to an end. The idea that the children will have a better future than their parents. That's for many people not a given anymore. I think we have diversified, open societies, which makes it more difficult to find common grounds. Social media certainly also plays a role in terms of the media that you consume, the political positions that are presented here. So in a way, you can have the impression that when you are in certain circles on the internet, the impression that you may have is really that there's no alternative to a far-right government. There is a misrepresentation of what other parties do. There's an instrumentalization of anger, of fears, and the like. So it's really hard, getting out of the circle and having the whole nation being united on certain values and a certain understanding of the future of the values when it comes to openness, to rights, to diversity, all of that. That's much less a given than it was in the past.
So these elections will be pivotal for the future of the French economy, clearly. Eileen Keller, thank you very much for your analysis on that.
Thank you.